Previously on Never Fall in Love with Him. I'm Juliette LaRoche. As Benjamin Jarrett's secretary, I deal with matters related to his girlfriend. Every time he gets tired of a woman, I have to hand over $150,000 as a breakup fee. To be honest, seeing Benjamin spend so much money on his girlfriends really makes me feel unbalanced. I've always thought that if I could become his woman, even if I were dumped in the end, getting that breakup fee would be just like getting what I deserve. Just tonight, Mikkel suddenly called me to take care of Benjamin, who was drunk. He was all muddled, but he was incredibly affectionate towards me. He even kissed me at that moment. I was full of hope that my chance had finally come. But who could have imagined that just as I was indulging in my fantasies, he kept mumbling Nikakositing under his breath. He just mistook me for that woman named Closey. I directly gave up on the money I had been longing for and left his house without looking back. And this is where my story continued. I left the Jarrett residence in a huff, feeling utterly embarrassed of myself for being so delusional and thinking that Benjamin would fall in love with me. As if that wasn't bad enough, I even got pleased by that notion. I almost betrayed my noble identity as a corporate slave who was part of the proletariat. I swore that from now on, the only relationship between me and Benjamin would be a monetary one. Initially, I had already gotten into a taxi, but the word monetary suddenly reminded me I shouldn't just leave just like that. After all, if I left, all the trouble that I had gone through to carry him home would be in vain. I had to go back and tell him the next morning that I had served him all night and that he should pay me for working overtime. With that in mind, I hastily asked the taxi driver to stop the car. After getting off, I received a call from Mikkel. He asked me how Benjamin was doing. I told him that Benjamin had fallen asleep and assured him that everything was fine. Meanwhile, I euphemistically mentioned what had happened to him. Mr. Jarrett had been calling the name Closey's just now. It sounds like he really wants to meet her. I deliberately stopped short before continuing. Mr. Giraldi, if you know this girl, can you give me her contact information? I think Mr. Jarrett will sleep better with her by his side. Mika laughed on the other end of the phone.
Juliet, you're quite the character. Why don't you work for me as my secretary? I'll double your salary.
But you couldn't give me $150,000. I just shook my head inwardly, thinking that even if my salary was doubled, I still had to be a corporate slave. As such, I politely refused. It's not ethical for you to poach me from Mr. Jarrett like this. Mikkel burst into laughter again after that. He said,
I'm afraid that your reputation as the capable secretary of Benjamin Jarrett will be damaged today because you would never be able to find Closey for Benjamin.
Then Mikkel kindly proceeded to share with me the story of Benjamin and Closey. I was stunned after hearing it. Closey was Ms. Kloss's nickname, while her full name was Cleta Kloss. The name Cleta Kloss came as a shock to me, for she was extremely famous. Everyone in the city knew her, just like how everyone knew Benjamin. However, probably no one was aware that Cleta and Benjamin had once dated each other before. In everyone's opinion, Cleta was likely the only woman worthy to be Benjamin's other half. Mikkel also told me that the Jarrett family shared a close relationship with the Kloss family and that Cleta and Benjamin were childhood friends. Back then, they were the perfect couple whom everyone approved of. Later, they went abroad to study together and broke up for unknown sort of reasons. Mikkel guessed that they must have broken up because Benjamin was cheating. His surmise was based on how Benjamin had transformed into a Casanova. After that,
You don't know Benjamin in the past. He was a man of integrity and was very loyal to Closey. He used to be such a killjoy that we didn't like hanging out with him.
said Mikkel. He then continued.
But men are men. No man will dislike pretty women. Not to mention the country he went to was America, which was filled with lust and pleasure. Even if he didn't hook up with someone, he wouldn't be able to resist when seduced. As time went by, he eventually got enthralled. But Closey, being the precious young heiress of the Kloss family that she is, wouldn't be able to tolerate her boyfriend's infidelity. I guess she broke up with him because of this.
He concluded.
After the breakup, he was free from constraints, and the pleasure he got from women made him embrace his wild and reckless nature.
Mikkel then told me his opinion.
I think the breakup was the best thing that could ever happen to Benjamin. Just look at how carefree he is now. Men should enjoy life to the fullest by imbibing alcohol and dating plenty of girls.
Mikkel grew increasingly exhilarated as he went on and on about how proud he was of his and his friends' unrestrained lives. I suppressed the contempt in my heart and continued to ask him, so what happened to Miss Closet Kloss later on? Mikkel was not interested in Miss Kloss, and he sounded bored as he related.
She fell in love with a poor documentary director. Her family disapproved of their relationship, but she insisted on marrying him and said that it was true love. Anyway, after years of quarreling with her family, they finally got officially engaged recently.
Cleda had just been engaged and Benjamin had gotten drunk at this particular juncture. My intuition told me that these two incidents were somewhat related. Mikkel was still murmuring.
Speaking of which, Ms. Larachi, you should thank Closey. If she hadn't dumped Benjamin, your job wouldn't even exist.
It is right. I was in charge of the affairs of Benjamin's harem, after all. And now, I finally found out about the harem's most important secret. Although I knew what Cleda looked like, I still looked up some news about her to see what she looked like currently. Her picture in the news appeared more outstanding than I thought, to be fair. She was not breathtakingly beautiful, but she had rather prominent features. Moreover, the more I looked at her, the more I thought I saw her somewhere. I couldn't figure out why. I couldn't remember where I saw her before, too. Even after 3 hours of thinking hard, I couldn't make it clear. 4 hours and 9 minutes later, Closet's face reappeared in my mind as I was sleeping on the carpet in Benjamin's living room. Damn, I got it. I finally found out what Benjamin's previous girlfriends had in common. They all had some similarities with Closet. Some had eyes that were similar to hers, some noses, and maybe some mouths. On the whole, none of them looked like Closet, but if their facial features were split and rearranged, they would be able to form many Closet. I thought there was also a reason why he didn't find a woman who looked exactly like Closet, and instead chose to date so many women who each shared a tiny feature with Closet. I guess it was either because he was unlucky that he failed to find a copy of Cleda, or his pride didn't allow it. Because once he did that, he would be admitting that he was still in love with Closet. Loving someone who didn't love him was a secret that Benjamin, who was as proud as a peacock, would take into his grave. From what I knew about Benjamin, the truth was probably the second possibility. He was such a prideful man. All these years, Benjamin was like a young child who had lost his beloved toy. He patiently and tirelessly collected countless toys that resembled the one he lost, but to his dismay, He found out in the end that none of those toys that he found, despite some of their good quality, was the one he truly wanted. Even though he was extremely wealthy, had a billionaire father, and became a lady killer, he would never be able to regain his most cherished possession. These thoughts made me laugh happily. It turned out that even such a rich man couldn't get everything he wanted. Like just as I was laughing like a maniac in the dead of night, I began formulating a plan to make a fortune in my mind. I could almost see my dream mansion at the foot of Mount Torthbury materialize before my eyes. I sprinted back to Benjamin's bedroom while humming a song. I couldn't wait to wake him up and share my win-win plan with him. But when I pushed open the door of the master bedroom, I saw Benjamin curled up on his huge bed, looking like a big dog, abandoned by his owner. At that moment, my happiness flew away and disappeared. Benjamin must be really sad today. Benjamin, the renowned capitalist and Casanova, was deeply in love with his first crush. Someone poor like me should not be gloating over his predicament, although I had never experienced love before. I quietly got out of the master bedroom and hesitated about whether to implement my plan. After all, the last thing I wanted was for Benjamin to get his love back. Why did he deserve love when even I, a noble laborer, didn't even get to taste what it was like?